I'm your host, Krista Kornchuk, and I'm here today with our panel of experts to discuss making your resume work in tricky scenarios. Before we get started, here are a few words about System One. System One is a leading provider of specialized, highly technical outsourced services and workforce solutions to critical infrastructure, technology, life science, and government sectors, putting more than 650 employees and 10,000 contractors to work in the United States, Canada, and the UK. As you're tuning in today, please join us in the comments. Our marketing team will be monitoring them. Let us know where you're joining from and what industry you work in. And if you have any questions related to today's topics, we'd love to hear them in the comments. Before we get started with our questions, I'm going to have our panel introduce themselves. They're also going to be sharing a hot job, which you can find at the bottom of the screen or by scanning the QR code. Melissa, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. Melissa McNally with System One IT. I'm in the Washington, D.C. metro area. My hot job today is a full stack developer for a federal client in downtown D.C. It can be done remotely for the most part with an occasional client visit. It's an interesting stack. They're looking for strong Python skills with Pentejo and AWS Bedrock, along with some other tools. Would love to talk to you about it if you might be interested, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Catherine Matos. I'm a senior recruiter at Jolet. I specialize in clinical research and healthcare recruitment. My hot job for the day is a lab project manager 2 that's located out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. For this role, you would actually need to have leadership experience as a lab manager or supervisor for over 5 years, and as well as next-gen sequencing or omics.
And my name is Dennis Hurley. I'm calling from the amazing Cincinnati area, Ohio. I have a client here that's local to the Ohio area that's looking for a senior Azure architect. If you're not interested in moving to Ohio, that's okay, because this role is fully remote, although we're going to be looking for folks working Eastern Standard Time. This person is going to be supporting the cloud architecture, again, an Azure environment, modernization, integration initiatives across the enterprise platform. This client is in the health insurance arena, and this role is going to focus on designing and governing secure, scalable Azure solutions that support the health insurance operations, digital member experiences, and data platforms. If you're interested, feel free to reach out via email or LinkedIn. Thanks.
Yeah, these are great opportunities. You can connect with our recruiters on LinkedIn by seeing the links in the chat. So make sure you reach out to them if these roles are for you. Without further ado, we're going to get started. Again, we're discussing making your resume work in tricky scenarios. Our first question, should candidates use AI to write their resumes? And if so, how should they do it? Melissa, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I think AI is fantastic in many ways, but it shouldn't be used as a be-all, end-all for your resume. You really need to add in your own style. Write the best you can your resume in the reverse chronological order of the jobs that you had, your specific duties and the tools you used, and you can run it through AI to make sure that your grammar is correct, and maybe it has a better way to word your experience, but it really needs to be in your own voice. We see so many resumes, hundreds on a daily basis, and we can tell when they're manufactured, and that gives us pause. And if it gives us pause, it's certainly going to give our client pause. So we really want to know who you are as an individual, and in addition to your professional skills.
Yeah, I mean, Melissa has great points. But the biggest thing too, as you're using the AI and helping you out and guiding you through this for your resume, just make sure to proofread everything you're doing, especially your experience, making sure the dates are right. You want to double check everything to make sure it's accurate, because it's not always going to be that way as you're using this. So, but also make your own voice too. That's the biggest component. I know Melissa said it before, and Dennis will mention it again. You have to use your own voice for this.
Yeah, excellent points, both of you. There's not much more that I think could be added. The only thing is look at it as a tool. Use it as a tool. Don't use it as your only source of writing your resume. There's a lot of features between the proofreading, making sure that your formatting is correct, things like that you can really use to highlight and make sure your resume is good, crisp, and clean. And sometimes, it helps with the summary, that summary at the beginning of the resume, kind of giving a nice, clean, polished look. But make sure, again, like we've been saying, use your words. It needs to be yours, and we will see, we will know.
Yeah, well said. The summary really does tie everything together, so it really comes in handy there. And our next question, what is a resume trend that needs to die? Kat, we'll start with you.
Yeah, great question. The biggest thing, and I feel like I tell people this on a daily basis, your resume does not need to be one page. I mean, I get it if you're a recent grad and you don't really have much experience. That totally makes sense. But for someone who has 20 years plus experience, you're not going to fit everything on one page. I think what's reasonable is 2 to 3 pages, depending on if you have a PhD degree. There might be a page just dedicated to publication. That's perfectly fine as well. But again, just for experience wise, like 2 to 3 pages. That's if you have, like I said, 20 plus years. Less than that, it should be really two. You can definitely fit everything on there. But if you have any questions, you can always talk to recruiters too. We're here to help you any way possible.
To play off of that, I find also the inverse. The resume that's 16 to 20 pages long. You don't need that much detail. I know that you may be very proud of the work that you've done, and you want to speak, especially in technology, to every piece of technology, software that you've possibly touched in any way, shape, or form. That is not necessary. It's too overwhelming. A hiring manager won't look at it. Trim it down, like we said, to those 2 or 3 pages. Sometimes 4, depending on your career. I sometimes tell people, look at about a page per decade of work experience. It's usually kind of a little bit of a general rule that I'll suggest, but yeah, don't make them too long either.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. And moderation is the key. Take enough room to accurately highlight your experience without going into too much detail. Another thing that gets a little challenging is if don't get too fancy with things like text boxes and adding a lot of images, adding photographs, adding anything extraneous to your resume. I know it's really fun to play with software to be able to do those things. And in a creative position, some of those things are very relevant, but especially in our industry, your resume goes to a lot of different locations as far as being like put into our applicant tracking system. And then we have to take it and get it ready to send over to our clients. So the, simple Word document, PDF is fine. Text, all great, but yeah, keep out the fancy stuff.
Absolutely. If you're a creative professional like me, that is a huge mistake that we have often made in the past. So save that creativity for the in-person interview. I'm going to bring up a question we have from our audience. Do you recommend sticking to a reverse chronological order for listing jobs? It's a good question.
I'll note for a new grad, it's important to highlight your project work that you've done during your degree program. That's definitely something that's really important. If you're working in another position while you're still in school, for instance, retail or maybe the hospitality industry, something like that, maybe put that underneath because it's such relevant experience just to show that you're actually out there and working in and communicating and connecting with others. But yes, you can put your projects in your degree and your coursework that's relevant above that.
Fantastic. I'm going to take one more audience question, then we'll get back to our other questions. What about using ATS verbiage and words from a job description?
I mean, I'll take this one. Oh, sorry, Dennis.
No, go for it, please.
I mean, if you're applying to a job, and I think most of us will say it, but if you're applying to a job and you know that there's certain must-haves and qualifications for this particular job, and you have experience doing it and it's not on your resume, most likely people will pass. It's because they don't see that you have those particular responsibilities on there. If you have them, definitely listed. And most of us will, like I said, tell you that if you have 2 different resumes, one for this particular job and one for another one, that's perfectly fine. You should have multiple, honestly. But again, your resume has to match the job that you're applying to, because that's the only way it's going to highlight yourself and your experience, and also for someone to reach back out to you.
Absolutely. And our next question, how do you make short contracts look strong? Melissa, we'll start with you.
Sure. Well, they are what they are, and that's perfectly okay. I would note on the resume, short-term contract, and you could note completed on time, within budget, anything to indicate that that was the expected duration of the project. That's okay.
Yeah, and that's perfect. I mean, I think another thing too is if you're doing a contract and let's say your contract is, 3 or 6 months, however long it's supposed to be, and then all of a sudden, they extend your contract, it's always great to note that to us and the hiring manager, whoever, you're initially speaking to let them know that, yes, it's supposed to be this amount, but, luckily I was able to get extended and became a lot longer. I'm currently there, been there for like a year and a half, whatever it may be, the situation. It just shows that they value you as a person and they bring you on and they enjoy your work and your work ethics. So that's also a great note because, again, people will see that.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that make sure that it's clear on your resume that they are contracts, especially in certain sectors. IT, it's pretty common. Folks come in and are brought in as subject matter experts. They're just needed for 3 to 6 months. That's what the project funding had available for that particular discipline or skill. Make sure you let that be known on the resume itself. Sometimes people work for an employer and they don't necessarily put that employer that sends them out to multiple jobs. So break down, if you work for the same company for 4 years and they're sending you out to multiple of their clients, don't just list their clients, list that company and then list all the companies that you worked for that client as a contract in there. And that will sometimes help hiring managers understand, especially we've used a term that became common in about the last 5 years, a gig economy. It is something that is considered acceptable and shouldn't be something you should try to hide or come across as potentially deceptive to a hiring manager, because that can really kind of blow your chances right out of the gate.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And our next question, what do you say if you were laid off? Kat, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been laid off, and that was the first one that ever happened to me. So at one point, I didn't know what to do, or I guess pretty much anything. Again, it just really happened and it was a real thing. And I realized as I'm talking to people, it happens. It's common. It unfortunately we don't want it to be common, but it is. And things, I want to say it is what it is. So people understand as you're applying. So as you're talking to people and the hiring managers, tell them like, hey, there is a company-wide restructuring, a budget cut, whatever it is, be direct and straightforward. And again, you can keep it simple. You don't have to explain in more details as long as you tell them that this is what happened. Again, hiring managers will understand.
I agree 100%. It is, there's a bit of a stigma that sometimes comes with getting laid off, that people naturally seem to think it happens to you, just you're the only person. But if you start to look around, it's happened to so many other people. Healthy hiring managers are going to appreciate that layoffs happen. We've had a lot of things happen in our economy and in just our society in the last 5 years. Things have happened. It's okay. The one thing I encourage folks to do that sometimes isn't always clear on a resume is let's say you were laid off 6 months ago and you still show on your resume as you're currently employed at that employer. That can cause a little bit of confusion and come off as deceitful in the very beginning if you're having to explain that out of the gate. So as we've kind of said, just let it be. It is what it is.
Yep, I agree completely with you guys. And I'll say too, as a recruiter looking for somebody with a specific skill set to fill XYZ position that I'm working on, a lot of times I don't think twice about whether you've been laid off. I know it hurts very much personally when that happens to you. But for us looking, we need the person with the right skill set. So I don't really even think about that. Again, even in the DC area where we see this a lot, especially this past year, it's just frankly a matter of kind of what's happening in our market. But I agree with Dennis. Say when it happened. A lot of times I'll have to ask 3 or 4 times, when did your position end? And it's really just so we have accurate information on the resume. it's okay. Even if it was last April or June or whenever, we know the market is so tough right now. And we want to help you find a new position. When we ask you questions, it's not to put you on the spot. It's really just to make sure we have accurate information to help our hiring managers say yes to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Recruiters are there to advocate for you, and they can't
Absolutely.
do that unless you're transparent. Well said.
Yep.
Our next question, how do you address resume gaps? Dennis, we'll start with you.
Sure. Gaps happen. Life happens. We have personal matters in our life that can be joyous, such as children, or we could have health events of our own, or with loved ones that we need to help out with. Uh, Life events that cause gaps in resumes are okay, regardless of what they are. I always encourage folks to be brief but honest about it. They don't have to get into great detail. One of the things that I found is that if a hiring manager is not empathetic to a perfectly normal life event that happens that takes you out of the workforce for X period of time, there may not be the right organization for you to go to because we never know what's going to happen again. And so, be honest. Make a brief note if you have a gap of 6 months to a year on your resume. Just mention a life event. Child care, elder care, personal health issue. Like, you don't have to get into the detail. You don't have to share all your personal information, but address it. And it's okay. The right organizations understand.
Yep, I agree 1,000%. I mean, there's no greater love that you can give someone, either to yourself or to others. But caring for yourself if you've been injured, which of course nobody wants that to happen, or for your family and loved ones. I mean, that's what we, as humans, that's what we do on the planet. And to Dennis's point, it builds collaboration and empathy. Like I've been on this planet a long time, and I've had all varieties of care. So I totally understand it when people have those things happen in their lives, and it definitely builds a bridge. Again, don't get into too much detail because then it just goes off on a tangent. But if a company doesn't understand, again, to Dennis's point, then maybe they're not very nice humans, and maybe you don't want to work for them anyway.
Yeah, both of you guys made a great point. I mean, things happen, and I think that's what you need to tell yourself is it's common. It's going to happen. You have things you have going on in your life. Just don't think it's a red flag on your end because it's a gap on your resume. We all been there. We have loved ones to take care of, or even ourselves, like what Melissa and Dennis mentioned. It's okay. So just make sure when you're talking to managers, you're not over explaining, what's happening. Just be direct, and then tell them this is what it was, and that's the end of it. But again, don't over explain it.
Absolutely. And a way to reframe it, when you are explaining that to a hiring manager, the way they react will really show you about tell you what their company culture is like. So think of it as an interview on your end as well. It really takes the pressure off. And our next question, how do you pivot careers without starting from zero? Melissa, we'll start with you.
Sure. So if it's a career pivot that you're expecting and anticipating and preparing for because you want to, the best thing you can do is take coursework, get involved in whatever that activity or new career might be on your time away from your current position. If it was a career pivot that you didn't expect or didn't want to happen, the best thing you can do is pick yourself up, give yourself some, good self-talk, and understand that, again, these things happen, and you have to just make the best of it, and try to use your current skills to relay into whatever that new career might be. Taking a step back, and again, just back to our other topic is, things happen. You just have to take the good skills that you have and relay them the best you can.
Yeah, I mean, Melissa's a great point. I mean, I think you really do have to look back at your past roles and what your new path will be, and think about what skills, are strong for you, or something that you enjoy, that, hey, this is what I want to do moving forward. And you really have to look at your skills. I mean, if you think that, hey, this is not what I want to do, then yes, unfortunately, you have to start from zero because you want to complete career change. But if you're looking at something that you have been doing or said doing right now, then it's okay, let's see what else is new for me that I can use that particular skill set that I've learned that I enjoy and do something else with it.
Yeah, excellent points. And the only thing I would add to that is that a lot of really strong organizations aren't just looking for your specific skills. A good, healthy organization isn't just looking for necessarily a doer; they're looking for experience. And if you're doing a career pivot, that means you've had a career, right? And so you have experience there to offer that next employer. Now, with that being said, you may have to consider and take a look at your pivot and be realistic and honest with yourself. Is this pivot have a financial component that you don't have to start at zero, but you may have to continue the pivot. So be honest with yourself when you're pivoting. Okay, what is the benefits? Am I going to have a better quality of life of working? Am I going to have what are the reasons for your pivot? And as long as you're staying true to that, there's probably an organization that you can pivot to in your career change.
Absolutely. I am getting a lot of questions about how to structure a resume. So I do want to say to those people, if you check out our LinkedIn newsletters, we have a lot of really great articles on resume optimization. So that will be a really great resource for you. I'm going to pull up one question from someone in the audience. I have great work experience, but it's from a long time. It's from a long period back. Should I add that to my resume still with the dates? It's due to a significant period at my past job.
I can take this one. So, Kevin, it sounds like, if I'm reading your question correctly, you have some experience that you want to utilize and highlight for a current role or a current opportunity that you're trying to move forward to, but it's been a couple years back, if I'm understanding the question. So I'm going to answer the question as if that's my understanding. There are ways in your resume to highlight information that you may have done, let's say 5 years ago, let's say 10 years ago, especially if you were in tech, that, I had this strong foundation as a developer. I've gotten away with it, or I got away from it because I got into management, or I got into more of a leadership role, but I really like to get back to being hands-on. As long as it's clear on your resume that you have the experience or had it in a brief format in those years prior, I would really highlight that once you get to that interview process and really bring that, like, hey, I don't want to manage people any longer. I want to be back in the weeds. I want to get back into that hands-on. A lot of folks in the career used to be very hands-on people, and then through some natural attrition and sometimes some org changes, they kind of get promoted or pushed into leadership roles, and they realize, you know what, I'm more of a hands-on person. It's not that I don't like managing people, but I don't also like managing the processes and dealing with HR and dealing with timesheets and dealing with everything else, like some of the administrative stuff. So if you're trying to come back into maybe a more of a hands-on role, mention that even in your summary. Say, hey, career lifelong, or been a senior manager for X number of years, or doing this role for the next number of years. Really looking to explore to get back into where my roots are.
Well said. And we're getting great feedback from Kevin. So you answered that beautifully, Dennis. Thank you. And our last question of the day, if someone has multiple short roles in a row, how should they frame that story? Kat, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, for this one, you just have to be direct. Show it on there, you have contracts and what that may be. And again, we talked about it briefly too with the contract piece, is listing it out and, showing that it's there, that you have done it. But again, just be honest and direct. Things may happen that you have to take the contract positions, and, it's going on in your life. But as long as you're honest and you're not hiding anything, because like I said, it will come out later on in interviews. So you just want to just be honest about it.
Oh, well, I think that's me next. Sorry. So there's a lot of different reasons why people have multiple roles. The environment of our workforce has been very challenging for folks over the last number of years. We have this, we touched on it earlier, a gig economy. There's a number of different reasons that don't mean that it's a bad reason. Companies have been restructuring, hiring, laying off. I've known people personally that have gotten a job, and then 3 months later, the company goes, oh, you know what? Hey, we thought first quarter next year we're going to continue with the budget, but we've actually had a budget change. With that being said, it's okay. I understand that the perception cannot be ideal, but sticking with that, being honest, a hiring manager that is in tune to the industry is going to be empathetic to the right hiring managers. If you're looking for a long-term role, say that. Let the hiring manager know once you're in that opportunity to say, I've been looking for a home. I've been out there trying to find one, but in the meantime, I had to go get paychecks because I have a family to feed, or I have a rent to pay, or I have myself to feed, or I have bills.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think without going into too much detail, just explaining, that, there's so much that's out of our control. You can't control if budgets are cut or if projects change or they go to a new technology. You really just have to just try to keep moving forward the best you can. And every hiring manager is a little bit different too. Some hiring managers really want to see many, many years in a current position. Other hiring managers really just want to get their job filled and need a person in the seat, especially in certain technology roles. And they just want to get somebody in there. So in our perspective from the recruiting side, we will of course talk to you and get an understanding for things. But if it appears to be a good fit between what we believe this hiring manager to be looking for and the candidate's skills, then we would go ahead and give it a try.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are good answers. I think there's a lot of people in the comments who have that experience. So well said, be transparent and make sure you work with your recruiter. They're going to advocate for you. That is it for today. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. Our next episode of Sound Off with System 1 will be Friday, February 3rd at 2 p.m., and we're going to be having a live Q&A. We'll see you then.